I call Shane Rizzi.
Thank you, Mr Chair. It's a pleasure to speak to this amendment bill. I'd like to speak briefly to a few points that have been raised by the opposition. A few points mentioned by Mr Tabuteau here a moment ago. He commented on the apparent loss of sovereignty with Germany being unable to address their sovereign desire to change their nuclear position. I think that needs some clarity, Mr Speaker. Germany is in dispute with Vattenfall, which is a Swedish company, and Vattenfall is a party or a member to the Energy Charter Treaty, the ECT. Now, Germany is also a member of the ECT. We are not, and this is a multinational arrangement to manage energy and power, predominantly for Europeans. Now, as I said, New Zealand's not a party to ECT, but the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, their February 2015 issue, speaks about ISDS tribunals and how complaints or disputes now against ECT are the highest they have the greatest number of complaints against ECT. Used to be NAFTA, but now it's ECT. I think we also need to remember that the German government is being sued, and being sued does not mean that they're going to win. In fact, if we look at 356 cases that have been concluded through ISDS, there's only a 25% success rate. I'd also comment the Energy Charter Treaty that Mr Tabuteau is alluding to has a specific sovereignty clause in it. It's Part 4, Miscellaneous Provisions, Article 18, Sovereignty over Energy Resources. And that clause states the contracting parties recognise state sovereignty and sovereign rights over energy resources. I think the second point I'd like to talk to is the discussion around ISDS. It's about fairness, Mr Chair. Fairness that we expect to be able to demonstrate to people who work in our business environment, but certainly fairness that we want in return. For our people who are working in overseas foreign environments, we want fairness too, and it's about fair and equitable treatment. Now, fair and equitable treatment through case law, through the tribunals, has several characteristics that have been defined. It must be consistent with international law, non-discriminatory, and non-arbitrary. That's what fair and equitable treatment talks about. And some of the rulings have hinged on, and I'll quote here, grossly unfair, unjust, or idiosyncratic. That's not us. That's not the sort of environments we work in. Another case study, conduct that is arbitrarily, grossly unfair, discriminatory, and exposes the claimant to sectional or racial prejudice. That's not our business environment. New Zealand's approach, Mr Chair, is that our view on this is that the treatment should amount to an outrage, to bad faith, to willful neglect of duty, or to an insufficiency of government action so far short of international standards that every reasonable and impartial person would readily recognise its insufficiency. It's solely a fairness issue, Mr Speaker, and we include it in this agreement because we're fair to the Koreans and we expect them to be fair to us as well, and I have no issues with it. Thank you, Mr Chair.
I call David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr.